Hello, how are you? So in this video we're going to learn some lessons we can learn from the birth chart of Elon Musk. Could he one day become the president? I'll try to answer that. And why does he have all these businesses in the cars industry, the space sector, and in the social media industry now? And why did he marry, divorce, remarry, and divorce the same individual? We'll also try to dive into his personal life. So let's start from the beginning, the first house, the house that describes our personality. And in this case, the first house falls in the sign of Gemini, ruled by Mercury. Mercury symbolizes intellect, and Mercury falls in the first house in all three charts, the main Navamsha and the Dasamsha chart. There's a first sign the individual is a very intelligent person, and Mercury falls in the constellation of Punarvasu, which is a constellation belonging to business owners. And this is something you also found in the birth chart of Donald Trump. In his case, Venus was in Punarvasu, and he also has had businesses prior to entering politics. Now, Punarvasu as a constellation belongs to either the healthcare sector, the housing sector, the hospitality industry, and public transport, and by extension, the cars industry. I think Mercury Punarvasu, in my view, is the reason behind his foray into the cars sector. In fact, he became the CEO of Tesla Motors whilst he was going through Mercury's Antardasha under Mars's Mahadasha in the year 2008. And Punarvasu as a constellation is a very giving constellation. It's a sign of success. It's also a sign the individual can be a very lucky person. Not only is Mercury in the constellation, his rising is also Punarvasu. I must also add, Punarvasu is a very loving constellation. And therefore, he could be a very kind, generous individual. Punarvasu's planetary ruler is Jupiter, and this is where his chart becomes very fascinating. Jupiter is ruling the house linked to his career and falls in the constellation of Anuradha. This exact combination, rising as Gemini, Jupiter in Anuradha in the 6th house, falls also in the birth chart of Srinivasa Ramanujan. A Jupiter Anuradha-like individual is not only a researcher, but can also look at a problem from a higher perspective. You can look at a problem more philosophically. It's a combination belonging to researchers, and if you happen to have Jupiter in Anuradha, please post a comment. I'd like to know what you are doing. Anuradha as a constellation is a lot to do with Radhana Shakti, the power of devotion, so you can apply your knowledge over a long time, do your research and find solutions to complicated problems. And Jupiter further is occupying the sign of Leo both in the Navamsha and the Dasamsha chart, which is a sign of leadership. Leadership on the basis of one's philosophical understanding of life. So in his case, he applies this philosophical understanding in solving day-to-day problems which are seen from the 6th house. So if it's the car industry, he's able to look at a problem more holistically and perhaps find a futuristic solution of some kind. Now, interestingly, the sign of Leo is ruled by Sun, and Sun in his chart is in the constellation of Ardra. I have mentioned in the video posted on Ardra that it's directly linked to electrical engineering. Let's have a look at this Mars's position, as Mars is ruling the house linked to money, and it's in the constellation of Dhanishta. Mars is exalted in this constellation, and this also is a sign of massive fame. I have maintained of all the constellation, Dhanishta is linked to fame. But fame of what kind? Due to what reason? Due to this Martian quality. And Mars is directly linked to the engineering sector. His technical engineering skills is likely to make him very famous, and it falls in the 8th house, which is the house of discovery. So his scientific inventions are likely to make him popular. Now, Mars's position further in the Navamsha and the Dasamsha is in the signs ruled by Mercury. Mars-Mercury coming together is always a sign of a very intelligent individual. A Mars-Mercury-like individual can solve complicated problems, such as someone who has a PhD in mathematics could have these combinations. And you see here, Mars's engineering skills are now combined with Mercury, and Mercury is in Punarvasu, which is extending his technical skills to the business sector. This is a beautiful way of looking at how you combine your findings from the Navamsha and the Dasamsha and see what's happening in the individual's life. So we've seen technical skills, but they are to be applied in the business sector, particularly in the cars industry. Mercury, incidentally, is also ruling the career house in the Dasamsha. So for all the industries he's involved in, I think the cars industry is likely to be his main line of work. Now let me take you back to Jupiter's position in Anuradha. I have explained that this position belongs to researchers, and that to the best kind of researchers. Now in his case, Anuradha's ruler Saturn is in the constellation of Kritika. Saturn Kritika belongs to government workers, public leaders. This is where I am beginning to see signs of his career moving in the direction of public service. Incidentally, the constellation of Anuradha also belongs to the caste of Shudra, which is a caste belonging to public servants. See, there's one thing to see the potential in the person's chart, that he has now the potential to be a leader, a public leader, Jupiter, Anuradha, Saturn, Kritika. But when can this materialize? His Jupiter's Mahadasha is due, and that is from late April 2030. So he's not going away. You know, his foray into politics, in my view, is not going to be short-lived. I think he's going to carry on. And by the time there's the next elections in US at the end of 28, if he were to contest those elections and if he was elected as the president, then by January 2029, he would be taking office, which would be very close to the beginning of this Mars's chapter. And Mars's Antardasha in his life, in my view, is going to bring massive fame in some manner. And thereafter, he'll be entering Jupiter's Mahadasha. Ideally, if the elections were at the end of 29, he taking up office in 2030, it might have been a bit more ideal. But his chances of becoming the president, should he choose that path, in my view, are quite high, as the best of Elon Musk, in my view, is yet to come, as Jupiter's Mahadasha is about to begin only after April 2030. He's doing what he's doing under this Rahu's chapter at the moment, and prior to that, under Mars's Mahadasha. And he was at the beginning of this Mars's Mahadasha that he invested in Tesla Motors, and when he entered Mars and Mercury's chapter, he became the CEO. If you go back in his life, you look at the beginning of Moon's Mahadasha in the year 2004 and 5, he was accepted for a PhD program at that time, but he decided to pursue his business. Moon's Mahadasha anyways isn't directly linked to higher educational programs, and Moon is also not directly linked to the houses linked to higher education. So I believe at that time he was destined to do something else rather than study further. And if you look at the houses linked to higher education, the 8th and the 9th house are linked by Saturn. The house linked to higher education is the 9th one, ruled by Saturn. And Saturn further is placed in the 12th house, not only in the main but also in the Navamsha chart. This isn't strengthening the house linked to higher education. So I'm not surprised he didn't carry forward his education further, as the 12th house is a house of not accomplishing a task. Then that's the lesson there. If you have your ruler of the 9th house and the 12th house, two possibilities. Either you may not follow through with your plans, and secondly, the 12th house is the house of foreign lands. You might not study in your home country, you might go abroad for higher education. I want to take you back to this sun's position in Ardra, and I'd mentioned Ardra is directly linked to electrical engineering. Ardra's ruler Rahu is in the constellation of Shravana. I have in several videos mentioned Shravana's direct relationship with the space industry. Sun Ardra, engineering skills, research capability, work being futuristic. Sun's position will always describe the nature of your work. Rahu in the 8th in Shravana is linking his career to space sector, and also about doing something never done before, as that's directly linked to Rahu and also linked to the 8th house. So that explains his association with the space industry. Moon in his chart is in the constellation of Purva Phalguni, which I'd mentioned alongside Punarvasu being the rising constellation, is a sign of good luck. Let me now talk about this Venus's position in his chart, which in my view is one of the main reasons why he has forayed into the social media industry. Venus incidentally is also falling in the house linked to his career in the Dasamsha chart. A Venus Mrighashira-like industry is exactly what Twitter is all about. Saying things in just a few words, that's Mrighashira, and saying it with the intention of drawing attention, that's Venus. So Venus Mrighashira is also one of the prime reasons why he keeps posting his comments so recklessly at times on his social media platform. It's this Venus's position which justifies his foray into the social media industry. And it happened right at the end of this Rahu Mercury's time phase. in the year 2022. And right after he acquired Twitter, he started firing individuals left, right and center. Almost half the employees who were working for Twitter were no longer employed. It happened right throughout this Ketu's Antardasha. And that's where I'm now getting at. Ketu in his chart is in the constellation of Ashlesha, and this is the most worrying combination in his chart. A Ketu Ashlesha-like individual can be very intelligent, but in a clever kind of a way. And more importantly, the individual can become immune to the sufferings of others. The person may have a don't care attitude, and in some cases, the native can also become very vindictive. The point I want to highlight is this Ketu Ashlesha position is a very worrying position. The greatest shortcoming the individual might have in one's character, particularly when one is going through Ketu's chapter, is that the person isn't going to be straightforward and may also be highly secretive and extremely strategic in one's thinking in a clever kind of way. Ketu's position in the Navamsha falls in the sign of Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is in the constellation of Kritika. So it is likely to play out, this Ketu Ashlesha's position, in the field of politics. Thankfully, he's already gone through this Ketu's Antardasha when he was in the process of firing all those individuals working for Twitter. He's now under Rahu and Venus's time phase, and this is the time for him to shine, essentially, with his views. This, I'm very sure, is a time when he's going to draw a lot of attention towards him. This is also, incidentally, a time when he can start a new love affair. As the last time he was under Venus's chapter, in March 2010, he started a relationship with someone new, and that person became his wife. But shortly thereafter, as he entered Rahu's Mahadasha, he decided to divorce the person. But then, whilst he was in this Rahu Mahanantadasha, he again decided to remarry, and later again decided to move away from the person. So this drama that unfolded in his personal life, it happened due to this Rahu's Mahadasha, in my view. I've always maintained Rahu brings a bit of drama in our life, and in his case, Rahu's in the 4th house, the house linked to his personal life, his private life. The other important lesson here is if an individual, particularly a man, is going through the Antardasha of the ruler of the house of marriage, the probability of marriage is quite high. Venus in his chart is ruling the marriage house in the Navamsha, and he was going under Venus's chapter when he married for the 2nd time. The first time around when he married, it was under Saturn's Antardasha, but just prior to marriage, he was under Jupiter's Antardasha, before that marriage in the year 2000. And Jupiter is in the main chart ruling the marriage house. And in any case, he was in a long-term relationship the first time around. I think second marriage was a bit more destined than the first one, in my view. If you analyze the main chart, the ruler of the marriage house, Jupiter, is 12 places away, which is an indication of separation from one's partner. And if the person is unable to control one's mind, the individual can continue to go through the cycle of separation. In another person's case, separation might be due to other reasons, like two individuals married, but they are living in different cities due to their work, and the temporary separation comes to an end. But if you let your mind wander, this combination, the 7th house ruler and the 6th, can lead to circumstances where you might even consider separating from your partner, but that's in the extreme scenario. The other thing I'd like to point out to you is that Venus ruling the marriage house in the Navamsha in the 12th house in the main chart is an indication that he may attract foreigners. Both of his ex-partners were foreign to him. He's South African. The partners were from different countries. And secondly, he's likely to attract individuals who are going to be Venus Mrigashira-like, perhaps artists. One of his ex-wife is an author, the other one was an actress. That is directly linked to this position, Venus Mrigashira. So you can also identify your partner, and I have posted several videos on this channel if you're interested. So this is about it. I have covered everything I wanted to say about his chart, and hopefully this has been interesting. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye for now.